Montana Farah-Seaton, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We made this work. Beautiful. How's the morning been?
Morning's been great. Nice sunny summer day here in Melbourne. Got a little run with a friend who's in town.
Yeah.
Followed by some post-run treats and coffee, and then got my nails done, and now I'm here.
Beautiful. Hey, Melbourne works. I swear, like every time I come to Melbourne and it's like this,
Yeah.
I could move here.
Oh.
Done. Beautiful.
And then you come in winter and it's raining and windy. You're like, yeah, no.
Respectfully, that's not it. Yeah, but how was the run this morning? You with Rory?
I was with Rory.
One of the great men.
He is. Yeah, he's down. I was down for Sydney, so we just got a little run and chats in, and it's a little bit harder than I expected this morning.
Really?
Probably just like a little bit dehydrated.
Yeah.
Work's been pretty stressful, so. But yeah, you can't win it all.
You're in the thick of it.
You just got to take what you can, and some runs are good, some runs aren't.
And a little well-deserved treat at the end of it.
Oh, yeah.
Where'd you go?
We went to Bread Club, which is a friend of mine's bakery. Yeah. Probably if you're from Sydney, like an AP bakery sort of vibe.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So we had a nice little cold brew Yumbo. Is that how you say the sodas?
I don't know. It's sure.
Yumbo, but they're mint. And then an almond croissant.
Shut up. Yeah, big fan.
Yeah.
I could do like after not that I'm comparing our long runs at all because I'm sure that they're very different. But like after like a little hour, maybe go like a little bit of carrot cake, little almond croissant. Like that's me. Sign me up.
Yeah, I'm normally a savoury person.
Okay.
We did look. My girlfriend Stacey joined us, and we almond croissant and this like pesto, pine nut, Persian feta, egg, pretzel concoction.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
So head on down.
Hey, so excited to have this conversation. Like we were talking about it before, how small the world is when it comes to sport. Like it's like I think I came and listened to you for Goldie Mara last year when you did that talk with Lulu. I think Rory
and Seymour were on it as well.
Seymour was on it as well.
And Jess Stetson. Yeah.
Great crew. Best crew. And I remember listening to that and I was like, that's so awesome. I was like, I think I said after, as I was leaving, I was just like, sick chat, like love that.
Yeah.
And then end up leaving and I was talking to one of the greats, Ruby Slasher.
Yeah.
And I was saying, hey, I'm coming to Melbourne this week and we've got like a heap of podcasts planned. Is there anyone that you think would be good to have on? She's like, you have to get Montana. Like she's ultra legend. Like you just fucking like she's always doing cool shit. And she did the intro, and now we're here. Small world.
I met Ruby literally once and got on like a house on fire at a golf event of all things, like bringing in some crosscodes challenge, and we got on so well. And
but she's like one of the girls. I think she's similar to you. That's probably why you guys fucking get on so much. Is because like knock around, like can talk the like shoes off anyone.
I don't think she stopped. Our volunteer, I can't think of his name, was like Tashim. Just shut up.
She's sweet. yeah. Oh, she's one of the greats.
She's good fun.
Yeah. It's so good. It's so it is such a small. And I think like the reason I am like so excited for this conversation is like it's cool. Like we get to have conversations with a bunch of different sports. But I'm like slowly starting to lean in to like a little bit of running. We're doing my first try in a couple months, which I'm really excited for.
Which one?
Kingscliff, an Olympic try. But they're going to do the UTA in the Blue Mountains in May.
In May. What do you do? What length?
50?
I might be there for the 100.
Oh yeah, well, maybe we'll see
you out there.
But that's what I mean. And so I think I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Yeah.
It's because something that I'm like so close to doing.
Yeah.
I do want to dive into all the running piece. I think that's a really important part of the conversation. But before we start, I think a really great way is like, what did growing up look like for you? Like you were Albury girl.
Yeah.
What did the household look like?
I was a country girl. So grew up in Albury, stayed there for first 18 years of my life, and then moved on to Sydney.
So it'd be like pretty country town.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot bigger now, and there's definitely a lot more progression, and it is a great little town. But growing up, it was just like every sport underneath the sun, outside all of the time. I was a swimmer, a netballer, a basketballer, athletics.
You did it all.
Did it all. Soccer. I mean, I wasn't great at everything, but I gave everything a go.
Just above average at all.
And I fell into basketball. Like my mum played, and her dad played as well. So it was just like something that we did. My brother was soccer. I left that to him. I'm not very good with anything with my feet. Better with the ball in my hands, I've realised.
Just running, you don't use your feet at all,
right? No. Foot coordination with the ball, I would probably say. I had a lot of fun growing up. There wasn't really... There's rules, but like I just think there's something about living in the country compared to the city. Like I drive around Melbourne now and I'm like, I can't imagine getting off a tram after school or getting a tram to school. Like, it was my mum or my dad dropping me off and picking me up, and then we're off to the pool, and then we're off to basketball training, and And that was it. And my family's quite close. Both sides of my family, majority still live in town. Like right now, my parents live on the same street as my auntie and uncle.
Sick.
And like cousins were all super close. The big family. My dad was one of 8. Mum was one of 4.
How many in your family?
Just me and my older brother.
Gotcha.
So he's 4 years older. And he's like one of my best friends. Like obviously you go through like that, you know, we love each other. We don't like each other, you know, like
classic brother sister relationship.
At teenage years. But yeah, we just were always playing sport, doing something. Got into piano because Dad was like, you play too much sport. Let's get you some. My brother became a guitarist and now he's a music producer and DJ and travels the world.
Sick.
So like, it's crazy how just like one thing led to another.
Yeah.
I didn't have those genes, so I just stayed with the sport.
You don't do piano anymore?
No, I don't do piano.
Could you still jump on?
Nah, I wouldn't know any songs.
Yeah.
I was one of those people that like, if I didn't practice, I was better in my lesson.
Right.
And my teacher quickly learned that.
That would be such a flex though if you just like rolled up to like a grand piano.
Well, it's like I think like I wish I could still play, but like in the sessions, like my lessons with my teacher, I think it was because it was the pressure of like, oh my God, I haven't practiced, that I was like, I need to excel here.
Yeah.
Like I need to nail this because she's gonna know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like played sport, traveled a fair bit with that. I mean, I stopped swimming at a high level when I was probably like 12. I was still playing basketball. I had just started playing basketball. Merged the two together, thought, water polo, that'd be fun. Hardest sport I've ever done.
Should I water polo?
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Random sport though to play.
Such a random sport. But like, or good fun.
Also super aggressive as well.
I didn't realise that until I started playing women's and they were like, 15-year-old, no, get back here. Like the underwater tactics, so
everyone's
bad.
Pinching and scratching and punching.
I remember and I don't know why this sticks in my brain, but I remember like going to swim off and this lady pulled me back from my swimmers underneath the water and like literally pulled me back. I went backwards.
Really?
So I didn't get off in front of her and afterwards she's like, I couldn't let the youngie beat me.
Yeah.
So I was just like,
but it's play on.
I think that's cheating, but sure.
Yeah, but it's like, it's kind of like an undisclosed rule. Like if they didn't see it, play on.
Exactly.
I mean, similar, I was in a like under 14 competition, like it was like a younger state, whatever it was. I think I was like 10 or 11. And you're like center forward, like in the middle, and you're constantly wrestling. And I was like a bigger guy, footy, and me and this guy were just going at it the whole game or the whole quarter. And he ended up like grabbing my nuts underwater. And obviously, like I was a pretty like aggressive kid. Like anyway, and so I ended up like out of the water. I threw a punch at him. Yeah. And then they saw it above water. You're gone. I was like, but hey, but he actually did like.
But you didn't see what happened underwater.
Mum was the coach, and she like oversaw. She's like, you're an idiot. Like you're an idiot. But anyway, sorry to die.
No. So played water polo and then kind of continued with basketball. Did a little bit of everything. But yeah, basketball was always sort of my main sport. And then, you know, New South Wales country. So it was always sort of like on the highway driving. Put it this way, I got my 120 hours for my L's up pretty damn quick.
Done.
Mum would just sleep in the passenger seat. I mean, probably Vic Roadster or New South Wales, whatever they're called now.
Yeah.
Wouldn't agree with that. But just used to drive up the highway, go to Gosford, Terrigal, Stadium a lot, Bankstown, Penrith.
Yeah.
God, wherever Newcastle, like we were sort of everywhere, and it was always like, you know, Fridays off school, straight up to that. So we had like NITP and then state, nationals. So made the team 4 years. So under 16s both years and under 18s both years. Yeah. And captained both my top age 16s and top age 18s. And just sort of continued through that. And
so at that point, did you think that basketball was going to be a career, like professional? Yeah. Like, did you want to go pro?
I thought about it. I thought like college is maybe like where I want to continue.
In the States?
Yeah. And I was modeling at the time as well. So they're kind of like two different sports or like careers, but loved both. Yeah. And so I was doing both. And then top age 18s, so I was like 17. I thought about, college, finish high. So I did my year 12 over 2 years. So my last year of year 12, I did 3 modified programs, which is like unheard of. And I don't think my school allows it anymore. Like they were like, no. They were like one and done. So I did 4 subjects. I did over 2 years and I did my second year by distance education while I lived in Sydney, which, I was like my first year out of high school. But played for Australia the last year of year 12. So I flew to Fiji on my 18th birthday after graduating.
What an experience.
And played over there. And that was New Zealand. We played in Polyua. Yeah. And if you're from New Zealand, you'll know, you'll be like, why did you play in Polyua? Like, it's not a place you're really going to go to. It's probably like 40 minutes outside of Wellington, I want to say. I could be wrong there. But yeah, had a great experience, met some amazing people, and it was really interesting because you've just gone 4 years of playing against these girls.
Yeah.
And now, you know, the best of those are all playing with each other, and you're
Yeah.
kind of like,
It's a weird
I
dynamic.
hated you for 4 years,
Yeah.
but now we're like friends, and yeah, I still see them every now and then. Like a lot of the time I run into them at the airport and stuff like that. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like getting back from here, they're still playing or, and then, made the team again. We went to Pacific Youth Champs in Fiji the following year.
Yeah.
So I was living in Sydney that year, modelling, playing basketball for Albury still. So I was up and down the highway a fair bit. I was semi-pro at that point. I decided not to go to college. And we went to Fiji. So I was a lot of the time in the AIS as well, training with a lot of my teammates there.
Yeah.
And then, the reason why I decided not to go to college was I was umming and ahhing about what I wanted to do. And I kind of was like, I don't want to go. I want to go. My mum played over in Texas. And so I was kind of like, that sounds like fun. But I think because I always have this thing of like a non-decision is a decision. And so I couldn't make up my mind. And then I decided, let's just see if there's any offers out there. So I put had an agent, put together a high reel, send that out. And I had several offers, probably like up to 10 in some very cool places. And I was just like, my heart's not in it.
It's like, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a no.
Yeah, exactly. So I just was like, nah, this isn't it. But had great offers, but decided just to play semi-pro. And at that point, if you had been paid, you weren't allowed to go to college. Whereas now I believe that sort of like changed a little bit. Because it's like, you know, back in the NBA, like if you're at and all how that all works in the college system. So I don't regret my decision of not going. Yeah. The thought of spending the next 4 years over in college and not starting my career kind of was like the decision of, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah. I want to start my life and, you know, start making my own money. I was living out of home. So like Sydney is expensive. So did that, but absolutely loved my life. So we then went in 2015, I made the Worlds team and we played, Worlds over in Russia. Went to Amsterdam, Spain and Russia for, I think it was like 5 weeks all up.
Insane.
And it was an unreal experience, like playing against the best girls or women like at your age from across the world. Got to see some cool parts of the world. And then that was kind of like it. I came back after that and I played for another like year and a half, but I just didn't have the passion for it anymore. And I retired at 21.
Really?
Yeah.
Imagine being like saying that you retired at 21.
I'd love to say I retired.
But you still go.
I'm like, oh.
Well, how did running come into your life? Because you obviously would have been like doing running and fitness like while you were playing basketball. Yeah. How did running come into it?
Well, I've always been able to run, but like throughout school, athletics, cross country, like, you know, I was doing the 100, 200, 400, 800, 1500 cross country, you know, everything, discus, shot put, height. Like, it's just, you know, and it feels weird to say this, but I was quite an athletic kid. Sure. And was kind of just would say yes and figure it out. Like, cool, you need me to do that? I might not be any good, but I'll say yes. And so I sort of ran. And then when I started modeling, running probably became the thing of like, oh, you run to stay skinny. And as bad as that sounds, like that was how I kind of got into it. I didn't enjoy running because running for basketball was a punishment. Yeah. You know, you do something wrong, get on the baseline, get on the sideline, fitness test, yo-yos, beep test, you know, 30-yard dash. Like, it was never for the enjoyment that I did it to begin with. And then I started running and I was like running 10Ks. I remember running out by my parents' place along the water and it's gorgeous. And I just remember being like, I fucking hate this. Like, this is hard. And that's because I didn't understand that not everything has to be done hard. Yeah. Like, you can just enjoy stuff. Go slow, enjoy it, and be present in the moment.
So you're running to help the modeling?
Yeah.
Or to be leaner?
To be leaner, like just to say like a little bit skinnier and like as a female, like body image is a massive thing. And I was in an industry that you're literally getting picked because of how you look.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I need to be as skinny as possible. Like early 2000s, like you think about like all of the models like over in the States and like it's cocaine and Coke. And coffee. Like that's the 3 C's. And like, it's just like be as skinny as you can, be as lean as you can because clothes look better. Like they don't want muscle. They don't want this. But then I was playing for Australia and it was like, hey, you're 7 kilos under the average position. Yeah. Like the girls to my left and right were 7 kilos heavier than me. We're worried you're going to get thrown around.
How was your mindset? Because you obviously came from the athletic background where you knew that being strong and having like being fit was important. But then you're also dabbling in the modeling space that was also like, you need to be lean. Like, how did you navigate that mindset?
It was hard because I was getting told from one end, like, you're too skinny, you need to put on some muscle. And then getting told on the other end, like, you're perfect how you are or you need to be skinnier. Like, and not that we were ever told from our agents, like, oh, I personally wasn't. One time I saw like, you need to get your waist and hips measurements down if you want to go overseas. I mean, like an average like measurement was 34, 24, 34.
Yeah.
So that's what you kind of strive to be. Like that was the Victoria's Secret model, like base. And they were skinnier than that as well. And so it was like, you were getting measured, like you were going into the agency to get digis and take your measurements because that's what's online. So that clients can go, oh yeah, cool, she's a size 8. That's what I want. Yeah. And it was like, try and get that down to a size 6 or 8. And like, I'm a people pleaser, and in that industry, if you're pleasing your agent, you're going to get work. So, and I know a lot of models, if not every single model, has dealt with it.
Yeah.
And so it was this umming and ahhing and toing and froing. And that's when I was like, well, what do I want to do with my life? Do I want to model? Do I want to continue to play basketball? I continued to fall out of love with basketball. I'd been doing it for almost 10 years at that point. And I was like, I think I'm done. I think it's like, it's had its course, it's had its time. And I wanted to model, and I got a job opportunity to go and travel with modeling in 2016. So I was like, cool. So I went to India for 3 months and modeled over there, and then did Europe for a little bit as well, and absolutely loved India. Like had a great experience, worked really well over there because I looked light-skinned Indian, and my background's Lebanese and Spanish, and both from my mum's side, and then Scottish and English from my dad. And so my look was quite diverse, that no one kind of knew where I was from. They could say, oh, you look Brazilian. Cool. Yeah. But then also maybe you're light-skinned Indian. So my look worked over there. So I worked very well. And then, that's great. And that's what I want to continue to do. And then I went to Europe for 3 months and didn't probably get the best response over there. But it's fine. I got to travel, and I had I spent 6 months overseas at, what was that? Yeah, 2016. So I was like 20 years old.
Yeah.
And then came back, still modeled a little bit, still played basketball a little bit, but like not a massive amount. Started like doing, PT, did my course because I thought, if I want to model and travel with that, there's gyms all across the world. Like I could maybe do the two in conjunction with each other. So that's why I started doing PT, and I was like, I've been in a gym since I've been 14. I kind of know what I'm doing. I've been around the weight room and stuff, and kind of just made sense to go into the fitness direction. I remember one game actually here in Nuttawading, 2017, probably halfway through the season. We finished the game, we're watching the men, we were in the post match sort of area, and I just said to my coach, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I was like, that's me done. I was living here in Melbourne at that point, like back and forth, and I wasn't getting to training. I didn't know my players. They didn't know how I liked the ball. I was a point guard at that point in my career, shooting guard as well, and you just don't have that cohesion. It's like trying to play with your teammates, and you don't know if, Big Joe likes the ball down low or up high, and then you're passing it to them, they're like, I don't like the ball like that. So, I kind of just made that decision to come down to Melbourne, and I modeled here and was working at a boxing gym that I was training at, and started doing that. So I did my first boxing fight, and one and only in 2018.
You did a fight?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That didn't come up in the research. I've seen you box. I've seen you do it as training and potential coaching. Yeah. But I didn't know you got in the ring.
Yeah, I got in the ring once, as much as my mum's just made. She my parents came and watched, and I think my mum took a 1-second video and was like, I can't video this because I never want to see it again in my life. So did that one. One's it. We'll keep it there.
Yeah. You got the win?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, we'll take that. Yeah.
I've always thought about getting back into the ring, and I've kind of toyed with it, but I don't know. My manager called me on the Sunday and was like, "Please tell me there's no black eyes." I shoot on the Monday. It was like Friday night. Who timed that?
That's ridiculous.
I was like, "There's a thing called makeup. We'll be fine."
Yeah.
So that was an interesting time, and I thought, maybe MMA is a direction I want to go, because I love UFC and all that sort of stuff. But did that. Been in Melbourne ever since, so 6 years now. Started working at the boxing gym, was there for a year and a half, and then BFit started in Melbourne, so they were opened up, and Seymour I had known from when I lived in Sydney.
Benny Seymour, great man.
Yeah, and he called me and was like, "So, how's work going?" And I was, "Yeah, good." He's like, "How'd you feel about coming and being the head coach at BFit here in Melbourne?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah." So started being the head coach there, and then we opened, and 3 months later, COVID hit.
Fuck, wild.
So up until that point, back to the question of how did running start, I never really liked running, but I was always quite good at it.
Yeah. And
then I started working with Nike I want to say the start of 2018. They reached out and they were like, "We're doing this half marathon project. We'd love to have you involved." And I did my first half marathon maybe a month and a half before that. because in 2018 I went to Albania and was part of the beauty pageant and came first runner up. And I remember being over there and I was like, I think I'm going to stop boxing for a little bit. I'm going to get into running. I'm going to do a half marathon. Signed up for a half marathon, didn't train for it, hated every second of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, then started working with Nike and understood like programming and a plan, and like not everything had to be as hard as it needed to be. Like run some easy to then run fast. And I enjoyed the process of it. And it's just like training. It's like pre-season, you know, you enjoy getting that fitness back. You enjoy getting your skills back. And yeah, I just fell in love with it and the people that I met. And so I worked with them for about a year and a half, was then working at BFit, and then COVID hit.
It's kind of like you had a bit of like a bit more purpose around like what you were actually training for,
and
right?
The purpose wasn't an aesthetic thing either.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't like, oh, I'm going out for this 10K run because I know I'm going to feel leaner or skinnier at the end of this. It's like, I'm going out for this 10K run because I know how I'm going to feel mentally after this.
I love that. How's your relationship now with eating, like years down the track?
Yeah, all good now.
Because this is because I asked the question because Ruby had the exact same conversation when we did a podcast with her, and I imagine there are so many young, not just girls but boys as well, who go through, have the exact same similar thoughts. They may be modeling, they may not be, but they constantly have these thoughts. And so I'd love to talk to you like, well, how has that changed over time from when you were actually there to where you are now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would be lying if I think we're all human and we all, you know, as much as we want to say we don't think about how we look, we all do that. I've coined this fluffy. Like I'll walk in some days, I'm like, I feel fluffy today. And it's just, as women with hormones, like, you know, throughout our cycle, we're not always going to feel great. Like, and that's just life. But I think it's understanding that how we look physically doesn't relate to who we are as a person. Like our worth isn't attached to that. And it has been still a journey. And I think I'll still deal with it for the rest of my life. And I think everyone will deal with it for the rest of their life. And I think definitely now understanding that eating for performance is a lot better. And I'm probably not like, a lot of people ask me, oh, like, what do you eat? And I'm like, I will never tell anyone what I eat because I'm not a nutritionist. I'm also not the person to look at because I get up at 4 a.m. And I'm straight to work. And I probably don't have a break, and I'll have a coffee or 2 coffees and it's like 11:30. I'm like, oh, cool, I'll eat now.
Yeah, gotcha.
But I don't like to restrict myself. Like I drink alcohol. I love to go to a wine bar with girlfriends. That fills my cup.
Little almond croissant after a run.
Little almond croissant. There's nothing wrong with
balance,
that. Hey, savoury over sweet though. Better almond croissant if it's good.
Yeah, we'll take that. We'll take that.
Little tweets as we call them.
But I think that's an awesome way to look at it, like having the balance there. But what do you do, like, because is it a matter of like catching, like when you have these thoughts, like is it a matter of like catching, like being aware of it? Like, what do you think it is?
Yeah, I think it's just being aware of it and being like, well, why does that make me feel this way? And like, I've always had this thing of like, if you want to have something, enjoy it, have it in moderation. I remember, I can't remember where I heard this, but it was someone talking about a bottle of wine. And he was like, you know, if you like a bottle of wine, great, have it as much as you want. Like, you know, but if it's a $20 bottle of wine, you could have it every day if you wanted. If it's a $200 bottle of wine, maybe once every so often. If it's a $2,000 bottle of wine, well, you're not going to have it all the time because you're going to go broke. So it's just like understanding like, hey, just have things in moderation. If you feel like something, have it. If you want to have a burger, do it guilt-free. Because it's almost like the cortisol and the stress of having the burger and what you're doing internally to your body. Of like, oh my God, I'm eating this burger. Oh my God, like it's got this much fat. Does more harm than your body's like. Your body's not being like, oh my God, I'm eating a burger. The body's like, cool, we've got some fats, we've got some proteins, we've got some carbs, we got this, we got that. We're taking what we need. So just enjoy it because life's too short to not eat the burger or have that bit of chocolate, but it's everything in moderation. If you love watermelon, fucking go for it.
Fucking love watermelon.
Even all as much as you want. And if you love chocolate, maybe like, you know, don't eat it every day. But I just, I try not to restrict myself too much because that's where like it then goes back into those cycles. And I know a lot of people who have dealt with it. So I just try and, if I want something, just kind of like have it.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love the bit where you said you run because you know how it's going to make you feel. Like you know how it's going to help your mental health. Like, I love that piece because even when I read an article that you did with Vogue a little while ago, and because I was like, because my thought process was like do you like running or are you just good at running? But you said I never really liked running when I played basketball, but it was something I did as a byproduct. But the fact that you like that's what you did, to then understanding the purpose behind it, to be like, oh, I actually feel awesome doing this. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Like with basketball, like I mentioned before, it's like you had to run. Like I was a wing player, like hit the baseline. Like I just remember it's stuck in my head. Hit the baseline, bounce back, hit the baseline, bounce back.
Sucks.
Well, to do that and be good at my position and my job or my role within the team to help the team be the best that they can be, I needed to be good at running. I needed to be quick and I needed to have endurance. So I needed to run. And I was lucky that I was quite good at it. So like that talent was there, but I just needed to work hard at it as well because you can't just rely on your talent. And so, you know, sweet 16s, beep tests, everything. I would always like be in the top tier of everything. But I never truly loved it because it was just like, oh, it's something I've got to do for my job or my role. And then, once I started working with Nike and understood a little bit more purpose behind it and started to meet people through it, and it became more than just a physical thing. It became a social thing and a mental thing. And I think everyone is seeing that now with the rise of run clubs and running post-COVID, and it's still continuing. And it's not like running's just started, it's like it was, you know, a new sport or something. People have always done it.
Yeah.
But there's always been different reasons why people have done it. And I think now the direction has definitely changed. It's more of a social thing. It's how you meet people and meet friends and make connections and, you know, business and like you meet someone, oh, cool, you do this. And like, that's how it all stems and starts. And so for me, I never really loved it because the purpose was probably wrong and the reason why I was doing it was wrong. And now it's, you know, I work multiple different jobs and consulting and doing this and my own business and stuff like that. That running is the one time I get to catch up with my best mates.
Yeah.
I'm doing something for me, physically, mentally, socially, emotionally, but I'm also getting to like hang out with my mates for a couple of hours on a weekend and then you go have a coffee and a treat and that's what it's all about. Like, we'll talk in the run and we'll be like, oh God, what treat are we going to get? Like, where are we go? We base our runs about the cafe that we're going to after.
Love that.
Like, we'll be like, there'll be a new cafe or something will come out like, we're starting our run from here or this is where we're finishing.
Gotcha.
So it's a great opportunity then. You know, sometimes people are on different training blocks, people are injured, people maybe aren't running as far, but it's a good opportunity to be like, oh, we're all doing our own thing or like some are doing it together, but let's meet here at this time and catch up and have that social connection. So Saturday mornings, and that's, you know, when I'm not traveling, that's what I love to do. Non-negotiable if I've been out, like, then, you know, doing something the night before, having a couple of wines or something, I still get up
You're
and run.
always there.
Yeah. I've always had this thing of like, work hard, play hard, yes. But if you're going to go out and have a couple of drinks and normally Saturdays you have a long run or you run, well, you're going to go out and have a couple of drinks, but you're going to turn up for your run.
Yeah, I love that.
Like, or if you have a late night, you know, sometimes there might be a concert on, you know, a Tuesday night or you go do something and you have a late night. I don't have the opportunity to be like, oh, I'm not going to work. Like I could, but I just can't because you've gone out and you've had fun. But now you've got a responsibility to show up for work for your clients. So I do that as well.
It's also a little bit like showing up for yourself as well. Like I imagine that's probably a big way for people to get confidence as well. Or even just like being good at something where it's like, you've got this boundary, like you've got this barrier where it's like, it's a non-negotiable. Yeah. Like you had that, I think you probably got that in sport potentially. Like you learn that through like doing it was like, I'm not going to let down my team. I'm not going to be doing that. So I'm not going to do that for myself. But when you put these boundaries and when you slowly start like slipping away from that, you're like, then you start taking that into everyday life and you're like, that's not it.
It's a slippery slope once you start.
What I am curious is like, well, how did you get from like doing 5Ks, you did a half marathon, like to ultras where you're doing like a couple 100-kilometer races? Like that blows my mind. What, like, there's a little antique clock going in the background. We love this
Beautiful.
space. What's the appeal for the ultra space? Like, what is the appeal for it?
I don't know. As my family's group chat's called Loose Screws. So like, you know, and everyone goes, God, I don't know why. Like the thought of even running, for some people running a marathon is still a massive thing in it. It still is a big thing. I think everything's relative, but I think right now in life, you know, everyone's looking at a marathon. If you haven't done a marathon now, it's like, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah.
But
where it used to be like, if you did a marathon, it takes 6 months off.
It was a bucket list thing for everyone. Like, back 10 years ago, and probably even less still. But for me, I think, like I said, running 5K, 10K, and then did my first half marathon, hated every second of it, and then started working with Nike. And the thing with running, or like anything, you put the time and effort into it. You see the progression. You see yourself getting better. That's like the drug to keep going. Yeah. And you're like, cool, I'm getting better at this. You work at something, you know, whether it's painting or whatever it is. If you continue to stay with something, you're going to see progression in what you're doing. So I had purpose behind what I was doing. I had a plan. I had coaches. I could have people I could lean on. I was meeting people, and I understood there was more to than just running. Like there was that social side of it. did another half marathon, did Gold Coast as a little trial run, but we did the half marathon project with Nike for Run Melbourne. And then I think I did my first marathon the end of that year. One of the ladies at the gym was like, I'm going to do a marathon before the year's out. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, I've never done one. I'm actually heading home next week. So if it'd have to be tomorrow. She was like, okay.
So you guys just did one?
We just did one.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Really?
Ran around Melbourne and just did a marathon. I think we did Cap City Trail and then like a little bit extra.
So
and that was
rogue.
literally just like, that was my first marathon. And then from there, I did a few more. The longest run I'd ever done was Great Ocean Road.
Beautiful.
Which was 44 Ks.
Yeah.
Stunning, hilly. I hate hills, as I mentioned before. So I was just there doing it with a friend and I, quite enjoyed that. And that was the longest I'd ever run. And I would fall into like pacing people for marathons. And that's how like one of my best friends, Stacey, that's how we became really close. She asked me to pace her for a marathon. She's like, I want to do a sub 3:30. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I'd never done the 3:30, but I'll pace you to it. I was like, sure, I'll give it a go. And that's how it started. And then I never really thought too much about ultras, I'm going to admit. And I'd been around the brand Lululemon for a while. And I remember in Movember, and I was at the Movember wrap-up party. Movember launch party, at their HQ here in Melbourne when Ned Brockman was doing his run. So I don't know how many days he was into his run, but maybe halfway through. And it kind of just started this conversation in my mind of like, this is just like a tradie, like a young guy from Sydney or like New South Wales, like Forbes, that is going out and doing this amazing thing. Like, why couldn't I do something like that? Like, it just started that conversation in my head. And I don't know if you know Dan Shinners, a mate of mine, works from Lulu. We were just talking. He was like, what's the next challenge? What are you going to do next? And I was like, I don't know. Like, starting to like think about things. And anyway, we're at this thing and the conversation came up of throughout COVID, Sammy Gash, I believe it was, had started Calendar Club.
Yes.
So day 1 of the month, you run 1K. Day 2, you run 2K, so forth. So obviously, as it begets, you get more mentally fatigued and the month goes on, you're getting physically fatigued. And it's like, all right, well, I know towards the end, that's where all my Ks are coming in. That's where the mileage, but you're getting tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love the idea behind it, but I just don't love how like you kind of don't get anywhere. Like the idea is you're just trying to find another kilometer around where you're running. And my parents' place in Ebden, like back home in Albury, is on the lake, and into town is a 25K run. I remember one Easter, I was like, I met them for coffee. I was like, I'm going to run to meet you for coffee. There was a purpose behind my run. And I remember the first time I did this run, and I was felt like I was in this forest, but I was like literally like the main highway is like a kilometer that way.
Yeah.
And I was just like having the best time, like river crossings, like all through. I was like, it was euphoric. I just was like running with, like no one's around. I was like running with the biggest smile on my face. But there was a purpose behind what I was doing. I was running to meet my parents for coffee. And so I was talking about that. And I was like, yeah, like, it was just before Christmas as well. And I was like, yeah, I loved that there was purpose behind like meeting my parents for coffee. I was like, oh, well, I have to get home for Christmas somehow. And I literally, that's the idea stemmed from that. And I turned to Shinnis and I said, my next challenge, I'm going to run home for Christmas.
What's how far is it?
326.
Shut
I'd never
up.
run more than 44 kilometers in my life.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm going to do this in what seems realistic, 5 days. So I had to average 65 Ks a day.
How long ago was it?
This was 2022.
Gotcha. It's like 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Two.
Just over 2 years ago
Yeah,
now. I'm sorry, it was the wrap-up party because I literally came up with this idea 17 days before I started. And I remember calling my dad and being like, so Dad, he was like, what day are you coming home for Christmas again? And I was like, so I kind of have this crazy idea. I know I said I was going to drive, but I think I'm going to run home for Christmas. And he was like, you mean like this year, like less than 2 weeks? And I was like, yeah. I was like, would you crew me? He's like, I'd do anything for you.
Yeah.
Like, what do you need? And I was like, I think we need a motorhome. He's like, all right, I'll figure it out. Like, I'll talk to some mates. And my mum was who did all of my basketball. She used to take me to basketball and everything. And my dad was a race car driver and motorbike rider. So that was kind of like our little thing. But he'd come and watch my games, but like he didn't care about basketball. He cared about me.
Yeah.
As soon as my game was done, he'd leave.
Yeah.
See ya, have a good night.
Yeah.
We'd stay back and mum would always she loves sport. And so it was the first time that my dad and I had done something together, but literally came up with the idea. I'd never run more than 44 Ks. My mate, Matt Smith, who's a photographer who I'd worked with Nike, he was like, yep, I'll shoot it for you. Dan Chin has created the graphics. It was called The Dash. So I did it for Christmas. So Dasher, you know, the reindeer. Dash for cash because I was doing it for charity. The Dash home. And so he put together this creative, and I raised money for the Smith family that year. And set out at 5 a.m. on a Monday morning, and he rode his bike next to me for the first 50 Ks. My manager at the time she had all my bags, and she dropped it off to my dad. They met, and it was just me and my dad from 50 Ks onwards. Matt left his bike for my dad, popped in the motorhome. He's like, if you want to ride next to her at any point. Just me and my dad on the old highways. There was no logistics. It was me looking at my phone, like being like, cool, we're going to get to this town, and being like, this is the road I need to take.
Wow.
And I remember getting to 44 Ks, and I was like, we're in uncharted territory.
So you had no expectations on where you were going to go. You obviously, did you think you were going to complete it? Like, did you have any thoughts like, this is probably something that I might not be able to do?
No, I don't think so. I think it was a naivety of it.
I'll finish this.
Oh, yeah, why not? Like, Ned's on 100K a day for like 40-something days. I can do this, sure. Like, what's 65? And
65 a day for like 5 days though. Like,
and so I got to 44K, and I was like, I feel really good. Day one, I finished at 86 Ks.
Wow.
And day one felt great. I was like, this is awesome. And I kind of knew, like, I'm going to feel great at the beginning, so let's try and bank some Ks, hence why I did more. Day one, sorry, I was like, how am I going to get up and run tomorrow?
Yeah. How did you feel?
Somehow, body was sore, feet were starting to like...
Start slow.
Yeah, you kind of built into it. You started to walk a little bit to begin with just to get your body moving, and then like picked up the cadence and started to run. But yeah, it somehow just started, and it was literally just Dad and I on the road. Like, no idea what we're doing. So like novice, like... We'd get to a pit side, like, Dad, all right, I'm going to stop in 5K. Like, I'll see you up there. He's like, okay, cool. I'd get there, and he'd get out of the motorhome, and he was like, I was like, can I get a chair? Like, can I sit down? Can I get some food and some water? He's like, oh, yeah, sure. What do you need?
Ned had a whole crew. He had a nice bar. He had a massage. Like,
I was like, oh, Dad. And so, just like complete novice. And I think there was beauty in not knowing what, like, the unknown. And so, day one, 86, day two, 75. And I remember finishing day two, and I was listening to a podcast of Ned, actually. And I just remember thinking, there is no fucking way I could do this for another 40-something days. Like, body was starting to hurt then. Day three became harder. I think I finished day three. I had done 65. So I was I was well and truly in the clear.
Yeah.
And I remember day three, I think it was, I was on the phone to my mate, and I was in Euroa. So it must have been day two. Anyway, I just remember being like, you know what? I know I said 5 days, but I think I've got to do this in 6.
Yeah.
And he's like, no one's going, like, she did it in 6. Like, you know, do what you need to do, get it done. And so then I was like, all right, cool. So day 4, I ended up doing and not just a marathon, but I think I ended up at like 46 Ks or something.
Yeah.
So it was a smaller day. And then the last day, and by this point, like, my body had never gone through anything like this. Anterior tibs have flared up. Yeah. Like, if there's something hurt, well, I just chuck tape on it. Yeah. Dad was like my masseuse. Like, he was like, what do you need? I was like, this point hurts, just get in there.
Yeah.
Literally, like, on the side of the road, feet up, eating sausage rolls, like anything from any country bakery. There was no nutrition plan. There was nothing. I was just like so beginner, but it was amazing. Like, it was a complete novice doing an ultra marathon. And I remember day 5 starting, and I got out, I was like 7 Ks in, because it was so hot as well and dry. My tape had started to fall off because of the sweat. And I remember stopping and like retaping, and I remember standing up, and I was like, I don't care if I've got to fucking crawl. I'm finishing this thing today. Yeah. And I did. And my auntie and my cousin met at like, just on the other side on the outskirts of Wodonga. My cousin walked and ran with me for a little bit. And that's where all the elevation was. And so I had that. One of my best friends who I used to play netball with, she came as well. And the entire time I was just like, friends were calling with support. And I think what sort of kickstarted all of that, and people realizing, because I'm very much like a closed book. You don't really get much from me until I sort of like open up, and I have walls up, and I'm the first to admit that. And I was real emotional and vulnerable in my stories, and I just didn't think about it, because I always thought social media, you got to be polished, it's got to be beautiful, it's got to be this, that. I was like ugly face crying, on like snot coming out my nose, and just on stories. And the amount of like people that I reached out to and reached back to me was just like, they were like, you're truly inspiring, because you're in the hard, you're in the depths, and you just keep going. You've inspired me to do this.
Yeah.
You've inspired me to go run 5Ks. And that's what I do this for, is to like help people realize their potential. And so day 5, I just remember like I was singing Miley Cyrus The Climb was my anthem of that run up and down the highway of country Victoria, because no one could hear you. Like if they're going 110 kilometers an hour, here I am singing The Climb, and my dad drove past, had the window down. And at one point I stopped and he was like, yeah, don't give up your day job, Dad. I was like, thanks, Dad.
Yeah, gotcha.
And then like my brother and his girlfriend joined on the back end of my last day. Like they, so I had this big convoy of people, and it was just beautiful, and it started raining, and there was just like these rainbows. I'm crossing it over the like bridge to get into Albury, and I had a couple of Ks left, and I was like, I've fucking done this. Like tape up to all over my legs. Like I looked like a bloody cobweb. I was about 10 shades darker from the sun, and my brother ran with me for a little bit, and I just remember running down the main street of Albury. Everyone's just finished 23rd of December on a Friday. Everyone's finished work for the year. They're all having beers, and I'm running down our main street crying out of like enjoyment and pain at the same time of like, I've just completed something that I didn't think I would ever do. And then I just remember getting to like the main part of Albury, and one of my best friends and her now husband were there. My family, we did a champagne shoey and champagne shower, and it was just like a beautiful thing that like my dad got to share with me as well, because he'd never seen that side of me. And he was just like, you just continue to amaze me. He was like, there would be times you would like sitting and you were just crying and you were like in the depths of despair. And he's like, and then you'd get up and he goes, and you'd start running again. He goes, she's unbelievable. He's like, I just couldn't help but beam and be so proud of who you are. And that was a beautiful thing for us to share. We didn't spend a lot of time together because I was running, he was in the car. And arguably the hardest job is driving at 7 kilometers an hour on a highway.
Yeah.
And I just remember one day as well, I was getting back out and he was like, oh, this is where you finished. All right, we're here. And I was like, oh, do I have to? And he goes, no, we can drive home. And I go, yeah, but I want to.
Yeah.
And that was, he didn't give me an out, but if I wanted the out, he was like, oh, let's go.
It's all on you.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so many parts of that story that you could like really zoom in on.
Yeah.
Like the vulnerability piece of you sharing. I love that. Part of it is the one that stood out was the relationship of like you and your dad and how you guys got closer together.
Yeah.
Do you think doing hard experiences with someone, do you think it brings you closer together?
I think it has to.
Yeah. Why?
Well, because you're going to a state usually where you've never been before, and you realize that we are people that need people need connection. Humans need connection. We're not on this journey solo.
Yeah.
Like, to get the most out of life is to understand people, to understand yourself better, is to make connections with people all around you. I think doing hard things is not the only way to get to know someone, but you get to know a lot about yourself and how you show up.
Yeah.
But you get to know a lot about the people around you and how they show up. And I just think being able to lean on each other as well, because sometimes you're going to feel great and sometimes they're going to feel great. I remember doing Red Bull Defiance in, I think it was maybe 2018.
Who'd you do it with?
My girlfriend Jen McHugh, who I knew from running.
Great.
And we both ran, and maybe it was 2019. Anyway, I can't remember. But there was times that, like, I remember mountain bike riding, I did not feel comfortable or safe at all, and she did. And then when we were in the kayak, it was roles reversed, but you got each other through it because you the accountability to the person you're doing it with, but then also like that strength that you can get from them, and like it's give and take. It's a relationship, right?
Yeah.
There's never going to be 50-50 in relationships, in friendships, in partnerships. Hey, I've only got 70. I've only got 30. I need you to give me 70.
Yeah.
Hey, I've only got 10. I need you to give me 90. I'm going to give you 90 back at some point. I don't know when, but I'll give it to you.
I've heard people talk about that, like in a relationship setting. Like you can do that as a friendship when you're going through hard things. I think that's awesome. Yeah. I heard someone say that they do that when they're in a relationship. When they come home, big days like, I'm at 10. Yeah. I'm at 7. Like I'm single digits. Like, and then you sort of know you have that open communication. Yeah. I think that's really cool. The other part of that, what I really loved, what you said you do it to inspire other people. Like you do hard things to inspire. Like what part of it is that? Like how big of a part is that for you to constantly keep pushing the envelope? Because it seems like that's what you're doing, right? Yeah.
And I would say it's like a pretty decent part. It's also to see like what am I capable of and how far can I push myself. But I just want people, and you know, I've like clients that I train like strength wise and cardio and online and face to face and stuff. And I just want them to be the best possible version of themselves, because at the end of the day, if you feel good about who you are and how you turn up for yourself, it's going to showcase in other parts of your life.
Yeah.
You get in the gym and you do a good session or you go for a good run. How do you feel? You feel great. You feel like you can accomplish anything.
Yeah.
Now, when you go to work, you feel like you can accomplish anything, because I think we're so used to second guessing ourselves and not thinking we can achieve anything we set our minds to. Are you going to achieve it all of the time? No, but give it a crack. And it's having that confidence of just giving it a go, because at the end of the day, it's never a failure if you try.
And knowing that sometimes you are going to fail, and knowing that it's okay, because like you did the run home again this year.
Yeah.
Run me through that scenario.
So I did the run home again this year after Further. So Further was a 6-day ultramarathon last year. That I did with Lululemon.
I do want to talk about
we'll get back. We'll get to that.
We'll circle back.
But this run home, I did it again. So one of my good girlfriends got diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer 3 years ago now. And I had just got back from Gold Coast, actually, and was sitting on my, I think it was 2020, maybe 2021. She called me and was like, I just want to let you know, I've just been diagnosed with breast cancer. At that point, she wasn't really sure what stage, and she'd been put it off for so long. And so she, within finding out, I think it was about a week, she found out she had stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, non-curable. So there is no cure for metastatic breast cancer. It's just whether the treatment works to keep the cells dormant or not. She beat it and cells became dormant through the treatment. And then last year, 2024, it came back. And I lost my auntie to breast cancer in 2022. And my grandmother dealt with it as well. So I knew it's something close to me, and just as a woman as well. And so Jen decided to start a foundation, Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness in Australia. And I wanted to raise money for her foundation that she started, because the whole idea is to help educate those that are diagnosed with it, men and women, because there isn't a lot of research or resources out there. And that's what she found. She was like, I didn't know anyone my age had been diagnosed with it. So they're creating, and other survivors, I think there's maybe about 8 of them that have come together to do this foundation. Yeah. And it launched October or November last year, and they finally got all their, funding and approval of everything. So I was like, perfect, that's what I'm going to do it for. Great. And I'd raised money by doing a half Ironman for her a couple of years prior when she first got diagnosed, just to help, because she wanted to start a podcast. Yeah. And I was like, all right, I'll do something that I kind of always wanted to do as well. So it's a challenge for me, but it's doing something for the greater good. So I did that, raised some money. She was able to buy all of her stuff for her podcast to start that. And that's what I want to do. I want to do something like, everyone always goes like, oh, what's your strength or what can you give? Like, I'm not someone that can give you money. I'm not someone that can help with tech. I can, as weird as it sounds, I can give you my body. Yeah. I can go do hard shit and hopefully make you some money, like to raise money for something. Yeah. And that's what I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my body on the line for you for a greater good. And that's how I'm going to help you and show how much I care about you. So yeah, did that. The run home this year, I decided I'm going to do this in 3 days. So it was
fastest you've ever done?
The furthest I'd ever done in a day was Further day 1, which was 132.
Gotcha.
This was going to have to be 110 a day for 3 days. And I was like, I basically did that for 6. I'll be fine. Complacency. It was hot. I had just done High Rocks for the second time 2 days prior, or 3 days prior. So that was on the Sunday, started on the Wednesday. Big year, a lot of races, did three sub 3 hour marathons in 3 months. So Gold Coast, Sydney and Melbourne. Just work, life was just busy, right? Yeah. I probably wasn't looking after myself, wasn't giving myself the amount of rest, and my body was kind of like, nah, you need to slow down. And my body felt good throughout the 3 days, but it was my mind that went. Like day 1, I went out, couldn't have asked for a better day. If you had said, how do you want day 1 to go? I would never have said this good, because I didn't think it would go that good. 110K, average 5:30 pace. Was like sick. Sweet. Like, this is awesome. And I remember thinking, maybe I do this in 2 days. Like, I actually had that thought to myself, and I was like, hang on a second. Just remember.
Pull it back a little bit.
You're going to have good and bad. So day 1 was great. I think I was all out there, start to finish, 12 and a half hours. Sean Finney, my mate, and Matt Delaney. So 2 great guys. They came along and shot it. And my parents. And that was my crew. So with some sponsorship help and stuff, had like a Kia Carnival that my parents drove, and that was like our minivan for the trip. day 1, great, got to Seymour. And day 2, got up, 4:30, felt pretty good. Like, it was pitch black and it was kind of like nice. It was solitude. There wasn't many cars on the road. And just kept running. And again, it was a little bit hotter that day, but I still had a great day. Got to like 54 Ks, I think it was. And it was like the heated sides really hit me. It was the middle of the day and I took a nap. I can't remember where I was, but yeah, took a nap for about 90 minutes to 2 hours. Kind of a little bit harder to get started after that. But still, again, body got moving, felt good. Couldn't have really asked for like it to go much better. But because I'd taken some more stops, the day just like prolonged and got longer.
Yeah.
So I got to about 10:30, it's pitch black.
At night.
Yeah. Back roads, like there's a lot of cars, a lot of trucks. And something actually happened in day 2 where I don't think it really registered with me what the severity of that could have been. I was running on near Glenrowan, like when you're driving on the like highway and you see like the pit stop or the rest stops, and then there's like usually like a side road that's like back road or something. I was running on one of those. My parents were driving behind me at about 10 kilometers an hour, maybe like 30 meters behind. I had headphones in and I thought it was my mum had come and touched me on my arm to be like, hey Tam. It was a car.
A car touched you?
Yeah, at going like 80, 90 kilometers an hour.
Wait, so but you thought...
I thought someone had just touched me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a car. And so kind of didn't really register because you're like fatigued. I was probably like almost 160 Ks in, or if not more.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, oh, it's a car. Oh, okay. Didn't really think of anything too much. My parents are in the car 30 meters behind and see that.
Yeah.
And when you're fatigued, sometimes where you like wake up in the middle of the night, you kind of like stumble. That's all that needs to happen. 2 centimeters and my life would probably be over.
Wow.
And I don't think the severity of that really registered at the time. And then so late at night, I started to feel a little unsafe just being on the road. More so not just for me, but for like other drivers, my parents, everyone's going 100 kilometers. They're trying to get somewhere. It's Christmas. It's the end of the year, fatigue. So I called it at 106 on day 2. So 4K short. I was like, nah, I'm going to get some sleep. We'll come back in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a graveyard shift. So I had till 4 a.m., which is technically the start of day 3. So this was 10:30. So I still had till 4 a.m. before day 2 was technically over. So we'll go back to the hotel. I'll sleep for a couple of hours. I'll get up. I'll do the graveyard shift and I'll try and get some more kilometers in the bank before day 3 starts. So went to bed at 11:15, woke up at 1:30, started running at 2:30, ran straight from 2:30 till 4 a.m. and finished day 2 with 117 kilometers. So 7 Ks up. I was like, grand, awesome. Stopped on the side of the road at 4 till like 4:30, just like ruined, like just fatigued.
What's the mind space when you're sitting there and you're just like, you've obviously had this like experience that you've just come to terms with. You're up, you've done a huge amount of Ks. Where does your head go? Like, where were you at?
I was just like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Like, this is big. But then at the same time, you've got one day to go. Like, you've got this. Like, you can do it. One day, you've done 2. You've done... This is what we're here for. We're here to do hard stuff. But I don't know what it was, but my mind after that just was like in this place of not able to push. Like, my body felt reasonably good. Like, I wasn't dealing with any injuries. I had no blisters. The niggles that I thought were going to start to play up didn't. And it was my mental, and that was it. My head just was not in it on day 3. And yeah, I started to try and run again at like maybe just before 5. And I'll tell you, I got 575 meters. And I remember saying that because I remember looking at my watch and I was like, nope, end. I got 575 meters and I said, I'm going back to the hotel and I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
Went back from 5:30 till 7. I slept for 90 minutes. And when I'm telling you I could have slept for 9 days, I could have slept for 9 days.
Really?
And I think in hindsight, maybe doing the graveyard shift probably wasn't the ideal.
Yeah.
Because on day 2, we were actually able to find a shortcut that knocked off 10 Ks. So I knew I was like, cool, I don't have to do 110 Ks on the last day because I've now got this little buffer. Still had to do like 90 something kilometers, but I like got to that point and I was like, got back after a nap in the hotel and again was just like, all right, 7:30. This is not where we want to be. We want to be ahead of this, but we're here. Just couldn't run. Like, my mind was telling my body that I couldn't run. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the desire to want to run. And so I was just battling that for 37 Ks. And Matt Smith was driving to Bright to go mountain bike riding. I shared my location with him, and he actually came and walked with me for a little bit. And I was talking to him, and we got to 253 Ks, and he remembered my dad, and my mum knew him, and we had a little chat. And then just from then on, I just couldn't start again. So I was at 253. I was at Wangaratta, and I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this. And my mum was like trying to push me, like, no, you want to do this, because she's like, I know what you like, and I know you'll want to keep going. And part of the thought process was, what will people think of me if I don't finish this? Because everyone goes, oh, what can't you do? You're superhuman. You can do anything. And it's like, well, I'm a human at the end of the day, and I'm not going to always be able to do everything. And so part of me was like, oh, well, I've got to finish this because I've got to do it, because everyone expects me to do it. And that was what I dealt with a lot throughout that last probably like 20 Ks, was like
feeling of like what
I'm going to let people down, or like people won't think the same. Oh, like, who am I as a person now? It's like an identity crisis almost. And we spoke about this earlier. And it was like, well, are people going to think any less of me if I don't? And are they going to think any more of me if I do? How many times do we go into a game and we don't play the best that we could have or should have? We go and do all this training for a marathon, we don't finish, or we don't get the time that we want. Like, it's just a race. It's just a run. Yes, there's a bigger purpose of trying to raise money for a friend and that, but it's also, I was doing it. It wasn't fun anymore. Everything became, I was doing it for all the wrong reasons, basically. And so I got to 253 and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. I literally had a drink bottle in my hand and I threw it at the ground and I just started crying. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be here. My mum was like, let's walk. So my mum and I walked. My dad just drove behind in the car and we just spoke and we just chatted. And
what did you guys talk about?
Everything, life, like relationships, dating, this, that, and just like catching up with my mum. Because I don't see my parents all of that much. Like, my mum comes to Melbourne, but I'm still working. But we'll go out and like shop and stuff. And we just spoke about anything that came to mind. And the biggest thing was probably talking about like why I'm okay with not finishing this. And she was like, I just wanted to push you because I know that you would want to be pushed. But if you're okay with your choice and your decision, then I'm okay. And I said, but I don't want to let you down. She's like, you're not letting me down. And that was the thing. I didn't want to let anyone down. But yeah, we walked to 260K and my dad had taken a video of us. He goes, God, you two look the same. You bloody walk the same. It was just like, he was like, it just made me smile just seeing my wife and my daughter just doing something together. And yeah, I actually remember, and I got this screenshot up because I had been thinking about it a lot. And I was like, this was my thought process at the end of it. And it was like, sometimes we don't always achieve what we set out to do. I haven't experienced that many times because I've always just had the ability to keep pushing forward. But today I couldn't see an end in sight. And no matter how much I tried to push forward, so hopefully my mind would change and adjust, it just didn't. Doing mentally and physically challenging feats like this is what I set out to do, are a great opportunity to push your beliefs, but it's also easy to get lost that not all races or things in life for that matter are going to go your way. This is a reminder that it's never a failure if you just keep trying until nothing was left to give. I'm proud of what I achieved, and tomorrow, the next day, I might wake up feeling upset with myself. But like anything, it was a choice of putting my mental and emotional health before my physical. And for me, that's growth. This isn't where my journey ends. It's a step to being the person I want to be.
Wow, goosebumps.
Yeah, it makes me cry thinking about it. But that's what it was for me. It was like, where do I see growth for myself? It's like how I show up for myself. And the physical usually is the easy part for me. But it's like, be kind because you are enough. And I've dealt with like mental health, always. But I remember seeing a psychotherapist, I think it was like 2021 maybe. And she was like, what does the phrase I'm enough mean to you? And I was like, mediocre. Like, enough. For me, the word enough is like, oh, that's good enough. Oh, that'll do. That's enough. And she was like, she wanted to laugh and basically like, no, I'm enough means who you are in this moment. You cannot be physically, mentally, emotionally, you cannot be any more than what you are. And that is enough. And she goes, every morning when you wake up, I want you to look yourself in the mirror and say, I am enough. And Rory and I have this conversation and, he's got a tattoo saying I am enough. And that is a big thing that we deal with as athletes and individuals perfectionism and wanting to be the best. But sometimes it's not there. You can't be 100% or 110% every time you step onto the field, step onto the court, step into an interview. Like, that's life.
Yeah.
You're not going to be perfect, but who you are in this moment is no more than you can be. So that is enough. That is everything that you can be. And telling yourself thank you. So she was like, whenever you start to get those doubts, I want you to read this to yourself. I am enough. Thank you. And that stuck with me forever.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Dad, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
That's like, that little piece was so beautiful. Did you put that in?
Yeah, it was on my story. And I just wrote it in my notes, and I was just like, that was just everything. And I, I've spoken to a few people about it after. I don't think I would have learned or grown as much if I didn't, if I didn't finish, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
if I had to finish, like, cool, yeah, what did I, I achieved the run home and the finish, but I gained so much more because I learned so much more.
I often think like some of the hardest things that we go to often lead to some incredible outcomes, whether that being through growth, and what you've gone through is incredible. And that I love that you're just so open, like vulnerable with that.
Yeah.
You mentioned Rory, and we actually do have a question from one of the great men.
Mon, it's your favourite Scotsman here. So my question to you is, what is your personal biggest fear?
God damn it, Rory. That's a failure. Yeah. And because failure can be so many different things, but I guess to me, failure is like letting people down. And I don't like to do that. Letting my family down. Yeah.
Where do you think that comes from?
Wanting to be perfect. Yeah. I think we all want to be perfect, but we can't be. Back to the I'm enough, and found out that this is more of a generational thing of like not feeling like we are enough. I actually got, oh God, I hope my mum doesn't see this, but I got a tattoo on my ribcage for my birthday last year to represent both sides of my family. So it's the word 23, like written to represent my dad's side of the family. That's the number that we raced or played in Arabic, because my mum's Lebanese. And that's just a reminder that you're never a failure. Just keep showing up, and that's all you can do. Because not showing up is the failure, not trying. And I think I'm scared of failing because I want it to be perfect and I want to succeed in everything. But if you don't try or you don't ask the question, the answer is always no. And it's always what could have been. Like every now and then I think back like, oh, what would my life be like if I had to play basketball and gone to college and done that route? Oh, I'm sure I'd have a great life as well. Do I regret not making that decision? No, because I made a choice of I'm going to do this and I went into it 100% and I did that. I didn't want to, because for so long, like for 2 years, I was like modeling basketball. I was never choosy. I was kind of just like teetering on the edge of both. So yeah, my biggest, I don't want to fail at things. I don't want to fail as a friend, as a partner, as a daughter, a sister, a colleague, or anything like that. And I'm a people pleaser, and I want everyone wants everyone to like them, but I'm starting to understand that like if someone doesn't, it's not on you. And I just want to like do my part to help other people.
Because from the outside looking in, obviously like huge amount of respect for what you do, not only like for your races, but community, like even like being a coach, like that's a huge part of it, because you almost become like their therapist in a sense, and you become really close. And I think people who lean into that space, they do it because they genuinely care about people. I imagine I know I'm right in saying that, because I've had conversations with Rory about this. We had a really good chat yesterday about you. And I look at that, and I look at all the feats that you're doing, wanting to raise money for your friend, and it seems like, you're doing it to like maybe a little bit of fear of failure, but you do it because you genuinely care. And I think that's probably one of the greatest traits that anyone can have, right? And you want people to love you. Like we all want to be loved. We all want to be cared for. But I think a really beautiful thing for anyone, and even a trait, is like having someone that like really cares about you. Like I heard this one thing the other day where this guy was just like, he was sitting there and just like, my friend told me that he's the person that most represents him, or like when he introduces his friends, they're the person that most represents me as a person. Because you know when you say like your friends are a good representation of you, he's just like, he said that I was that friend that he'd like most want to introduce to other people as representation of himself. And he said that is the best compliment I have ever received ever. And I look at someone like you who's just like has so much love and care for their friends. Like I don't barely met you this morning, right? But you give that energy out, and I think it is such a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we haven't even touched on further, but one part that, and we don't even have to, but the one part about further is I remember on day 4, I just hit my further and video crew was there. My whole crew was there. And I remember when I was doing this lap, and Rico, who is from Hong Kong, and she'd never run more than 5Ks.
Yeah.
Like she'd never even run like 2 kilometers, and she ran 300 kilometers over 6 days. That was her further, and that was her goal. Like
far out. I feel like we're obviously like strapping time. But insane.
And this is a good bit. This story of further could go on forever.
We could do a 3-hour thing here, but conscious of time.
And this one, I just want to like, this is where I showed up for myself, and like, this is who you are. Is I remember like seeing her, and I remember her crew had said to me, "Hey, have you seen Rico out there? Like, I know I think she's struggling a little bit. She's taking a little bit longer on her laps." And I was like, yeah. I'll look out for her, and I'll check in on her. And I remember seeing, because obviously the colour, we're in Coral Kiss, so you could see it. We're running around a 4-kilometre loop in the desert, so there was only 10 of us out there. And I remember seeing her bucket hat, and I was like, all right, I'm going to run until I see her, and I'll walk with her and see how she's doing. Anyway, I remember coming through the biomechanics tent, and I knew it was my further coming up, and I didn't care. I was like, I could see my crew up there, and I was like, I was just in a mood. I was like, I'm not in the mood to celebrate. Like, I just want to keep going, and I want to get to my friend, and I want to see how she's doing. I remember running through, and I was like, oh God, I can't see Rico. And there was another tent on the other side. I came through my further. They had my flag, like the crew, the camera crew, videography crew, expecting me to stop. And I literally grabbed the flag and was like, yep, cool. And just kept going. Didn't even stop. And I remember my crew were a bit like, what?
We wanted to capture this
we
content.
actually wanted to, but I didn't care about me at that point. I was like, knew my friend was struggling, and I was like, oh, I can't, in my head, I'm like, oh, I can't see Rico. She must be behind the tent, like a little bit of a blind spot. So I'm coming into this, mind you, didn't know the crew were following me, like the camera crew. Coming into the tent on the other side where we had like food and whatever if we needed, not knowing she's going to be in there. So I've come through, expecting to just get a little bit of food, and I just see her just sitting in this chair, dejected, head down, and she'd gone past my crew as well in this state, being like, tell Mon I love her and I'm proud of her as well. So I've come into this not knowing that she's said this or that she's there, and I just see her, and she just looked at me and just started crying. And she was like, oh, I'm so proud of you. And there's a video that like, because it was captured, it was the most authentic thing that could have ever happened. And I've just gone up to her and I've given her a big hug and I said, how are you doing? And she's like, I knew she was down in the dumps, but she cared more about telling me that she was proud and how much she loved me, of like what I've changed. She's like, I love you, sis. Like, I'm proud of you. And I was like, how are you doing? She's like, not good. And I was like, she's like, I'm just going to sit here. I said, no, let's walk. She goes, no. I said, we're walking, let's go. And I got her up off the chair and we walked. And she said, if you hadn't have picked me up, I don't know if I would have got back up. And it was, the story was just like, I got you. I'm here for you. And what that showed me is how I show up for those around me. And that's what I want. I want to be that person that shows up for their friends. You know, I've got friends that, you know, maybe they're struggling with consistency and getting to the gym. I was like, I'll be there. I'll meet you there. Hey, I want to get back into running. I'll run with you. Oh, but I'll be slow. I don't care. I don't care if we're running 7-minute kilometers. I don't care. Because what it does for you and what I get from it, from helping you be the best version of yourself, is more than money can't buy that. And it really just showed me how I show up for those around me and who I am as a person. And that's what I wanted to, that to me was success of that. Like I went out to run 100 kilometers a day and I didn't achieve that, but I achieved so much more. I ran 508 Ks in 6 days. Still the furthest I've run to this day. But the question that I posed to the girls throughout it, because we all came together and it was a sisterhood. They're some of my best friends now, was we thought about how we wanted to come into this fit, healthy, strong, ready to go. But did we think about how we wanted to come out of this? And the question, we answer was, no, we didn't, because we just thought about the physical. I said, we came into this wanting to be physically ready, but we came out of this learning so much about ourselves about those around us, and we've come out of this stronger. And to this day, I'd go run 6 days in the desert with those girls again.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely have loved this conversation. Honestly, I think we could have done 3 hours
I
here.
think
We could have done it. We could have done it so easy. I think that's such a beautiful way to finish this. I feel like I just want to keep talking, but I am conscious of time. First of all, thank you.
Thank you
So much for just coming on, being so open and vulnerable. I think it is it's hard. Like it's hard for us to do, especially when we don't do it a lot. But I think you are so authentic in what you do, and I think you just being vulnerable. Like you're obviously so influential in community and for your friends and for your family, people you coach, people who look up to you from a running space. And the fact that you can be vulnerable, I think it almost like allows us and lets us validate us in the sense of, well, so can we.
Yeah.
So for that, I am hugely grateful and hugely appreciative. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
How good.